At a crowded school event filled with proud families, two little girls sat quietly on the sidelines, their eyes searching the room for someone who would never arrive. They had no father to cheer for them, no one to clap when their names were called. But then, in a twist of fate, a man in a sharp suit walked through the door. To everyone else, he was a powerful CEO, too busy and too distant for a world like theirs. Yet to Lily and Grace, he looked like hope. With trembling voices, they asked him a question so innocent, yet so life-changing. "Will you be our daddy?" What followed wasn't just a moment of kindness, but a journey that would redefine love, family, and second chances. Stay with us, because this story will move your heart in ways you never expected. And don't forget to subscribe to the Retold Stories for more unforgettable tales. The cafeteria at Eastbrook Elementary overflowed with the noise of Family Day. Colorful balloons floated lazily above tables draped with paper tablecloths, while art projects hung proudly on the walls. Parents filled the room with chatter and laughter, clapping for their children, trading stories with other families, and taking pictures to capture moments they would treasure. But at the far end of the room, near windows smudged with the fingerprints of hundreds of curious hands, two little girls sat quietly on a bench. Their legs dangled above the floor, swinging in uneven rhythm. Lily and Grace Harper, identical 7-year-old twins with the same ponytails and nearly matching smiles, watched as their classmates rushed into the arms of mothers, fathers, and grandparents. Grace twisted a loose thread on her sleeve, her face thoughtful, while Lily dragged her fingertip along the frayed edge of her shoelace. The girls did not say much. They did not need to. Their silence told its own story. They were alone. Their mother had promised to come, but the diner where she worked never stopped needing her. Bills, rent, and groceries always won the tug-of-war against school performances and Family Day. Grace nodded, her chin trembling but her posture still brave. Lily squeezed her sister's hand. They stayed that way, leaning on each other, small figures trying to look stronger than they felt. A few blocks away, Sophie Harper balanced plates of pancakes and refilled coffee cups. She glanced at her cracked phone screen whenever she had a second, the background photo of Lily and Grace smiling beneath a dollar store birthday banner tugging at her heart. Her tips were decent today, but her exhaustion showed in the slump of her shoulders. She had not eaten since sunrise, and she would not be home before midnight, but she kept going. She always kept going. Back in the school cafeteria, Lily sat up straight. Her eyes had caught something unusual. "He's wearing a suit," she whispered, nudging Grace. They both turned toward the entrance, where a tall man stood just inside the door. He looked entirely out of place among the chaos of streamers, construction paper crowns, and sticky fingers. His navy coat was perfectly pressed, his shoes too polished for the juice-stained floors. He scrolled through his phone, frowning, as though this scene belonged to another planet. To most of the room, he was invisible. To Lily and Grace, he looked perfect. Ethan Walker, founder of a thriving tech startup, had taken a wrong turn on his way to a property inspection. The school was supposed to be part of a community project he was considering, but he had misread the address. He was about to leave when two small voices stopped him. "Excuse me," Lily said, her tone high-pitched but firm. Ethan lowered his phone, startled. "Are you busy?" "I suppose not at this moment," he answered, raising an eyebrow. Grace leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Will you be our dad, just for today?" The words landed like a weight on his chest. He froze, convinced he had misheard them. "What?" "Just pretend," Lily clarified quickly. "You don't have to do anything. Just sit and clap and maybe smile, please." For a moment, Ethan thought it was a prank. Surely someone would pop out with a camera and laugh at his confusion. But no one came. Only the girls stood there, their eyes wide and unwavering. They wore clean but worn clothes, their backpacks faded from years of use. They stared at him as though he held the power to change something important, something they had been missing. "I don't think I'm qualified," Ethan said awkwardly, attempting a laugh. Grace's hopeful smile faltered. Lily's voice softened, suddenly older than her years. "That's okay. We just thought we'd try." The twins turned away, heading back to their bench. Ethan remained frozen, his phone forgotten in his hand. He could have walked out, returned to his expensive car, and endless meetings. But as he glanced toward the bench again, he saw them sitting there, watching the celebration like outsiders peering through a window. Something inside him stirred, something he could not quite explain. He left the building, but he did not drive far. At a red light, his fingers hovered over his phone screen, ready to dive back into emails and deadlines. Instead, he opened his gallery, staring at a picture from a gala, himself surrounded by crystal glasses and forced smiles. He remembered the emptiness in his chest that night, the same emptiness gnawing at him now. "Will you be our dad?" Their words echoed louder than the city around him. For the first time in years, Ethan felt the strange, unexpected pull of being seen, not as a CEO, not as a businessman, but as something more. Someone asked him to matter in a way he had never imagined. He gripped the steering wheel, torn between habit and a tug in his heart he could not ignore. When he finally turned his car back toward the school, the girls were still there, waiting, hoping. The moment he stepped inside again, their eyes lit up. He gave a small, uncertain wave, and that was the beginning. The sound of laughter and clapping filled the multi-purpose room of Jefferson Elementary. Paper streamers drooped from the ceiling, folding chairs wobbled unevenly on the gym floor, and children buzzed with anticipation for their turn on stage. In the middle of it all, two little girls sat at the back, fidgeting with nervous excitement. Lily clutched the edge of a crumpled program, while Grace whispered encouragement to her twin sister. "Maybe he is not coming," Lily murmured, her voice barely audible. Grace shook her head quickly. "He will." Lily's shoulders slumped, but before she could reply, the door creaked open. A tall man in a navy suit stepped inside, holding his coat over one arm. His gaze swept the room uncertainly until it landed on two pairs of hopeful eyes. The girls gasped in unison. "He came," Grace whispered, tugging Lily's arm. Lily's face lit up with a smile so wide it nearly hurt. "That's him. That's really him." Ethan Walker raised a hand in a small, awkward wave. The girls waved back enthusiastically before being called on stage. Their performance was a mix of clumsy dance steps and halting lines, but when it came time to thank their family, they stood side by side with remarkable confidence. "We want to thank our mommy," Lily began, her voice proud, "who works really hard at the diner, and our dad, who showed up just for today," Grace added, her gaze fixed on Ethan. "Because sometimes that is all someone needs." Ethan's chest tightened as something unexpected bloomed inside him, a mixture of pride and guilt that felt overwhelming. After the performance, in a quiet hallway near the water fountains, the girls found him waiting. "You made it," Grace said, bouncing on her toes. "I said maybe," Ethan admitted with a faint smile, "but I guess I meant definitely." Lily slipped her small hand into his without hesitation. "Want to get lunch with us?" He hesitated. "What about your mom? She is working a double today," Grace explained. "We usually just eat pizza bagels." Ethan glanced at their eager faces and then out the window where snow had begun to fall in slow, heavy flakes. Something tugged at him again, the same pull that had led him back to the school. "Okay," he said softly, "but only if I get to choose the milkshake flavor." The three of them ended up in a small diner a few blocks away, a place Ethan had passed countless times without noticing. Sticky menus, squeaky booths, and the faint hum of an old jukebox surrounded them. It was far from the sleek restaurants he usually frequented, but here it felt right. The twins devoured their burgers and fries with gleeful abandon, giggling as they told him about their science project, their pet goldfish, and how their microwave always burned popcorn. Ethan listened more than he spoke, drawn in by the unfiltered honesty of their words. For the first time in years, he felt himself laughing, not the polite chuckle he gave investors, but real laughter that reached his eyes. When the check came, he quietly paid it without a word. That was when he noticed Grace's sneakers, worn thin at the toes, and Lily's backpack zipper that no longer closed properly. These small details spoke volumes, whispering truths the girls never would. "Are you walking home?" he asked casually. "Yes," Lily answered. "We always go together." Snowflakes clung to their coats as they stepped outside. Ethan hesitated only a moment before offering, "How about I give you a ride?" The girls exchanged wide-eyed glances before nodding eagerly. In his car, they chattered directions, pointing out landmarks along the way until they arrived at a small brick apartment building with cracked steps. Waiting at the door was Sophie Harper. Her hair was pulled back into a messy bun, apron still tied around her waist. She froze when she saw Ethan stepping out of the car. Her eyes narrowed cautiously. "The girls said someone came to their school today. They asked me," Ethan explained quickly. "I did not mean to overstep." Sophie studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. "They told me you bought them lunch, too. They insisted I try the milkshakes," he said with a small, almost nervous smile. Sophie's lips twitched, though she did not return the smile fully. She watched as the twins bounded up the stairs, recounting their afternoon with uncontainable excitement. For a moment, her sternness softened. "I should say thank you," she admitted quietly. "But I would also like to know who you are." "Ethan Walker," he replied. "I run a firm downtown. They just pulled me into this." Something flickered in Sophie's eyes, recognition she tried to mask. She nodded once. "Well, thank you. Take care." He started to leave, but not without noticing the way she lingered at the window, watching him drive away. That night in his high-rise apartment, Ethan sat in silence, staring at a half-eaten burger he had taken home. Instead of tossing it, he opened his phone and typed into his notes, "Lily, Grace, milkshake, chocolate with sprinkles." He read the names over and over, as if afraid they might disappear. In the days that followed, Ethan found excuses to pass by the school. When he saw the girls again, their joy was uncontainable. "You came back!" Lily shouted, throwing her arms around him. "I was hoping you would let me buy you more fries," he teased, though inside, his chest tightened with a strange warmth. Their lunches turned into routines. Ethan showed up with notebooks and pencils, small tokens he claimed were nothing but gestures, though they meant far more to the girls. Each visit deepened the bond, laughter filling the spaces where silence used to dwell. Yet in Sophie's eyes, caution lingered. She stood in doorways, watching him read stories or repair broken zippers. Gratitude lived in her expression, but so did hesitation. A quiet fear that one day he might vanish. She had secrets buried deep, truths that twisted her heart each time she saw how naturally he fit into the girls' lives. The night finally came, when Sophie could no longer hold it in. After putting the twins to bed, she paced the small living room, wringing her hands. Ethan sat on the couch, sensing her unease. "There is something I need to tell you," she said at last, her voice trembling. He leaned forward, concern etched across his features. "What is it?" She swallowed hard. 7 years ago, at a hotel downtown, you were celebrating. We spent one night together. I never expected anything, but then her voice cracked. "Lily and Grace, they are yours, Ethan." The words hit him harder than anything in his life. He sat there in stunned silence, his world collapsing and rebuilding all at once. The room fell still, every sound magnified except for his own racing heartbeat. "I did not know how to find you," Sophie continued softly. "And even if I did, what could I have said? Time passed, and I just raised them alone." Ethan's hands gripped his knees, his breath uneven. He looked at the woman in front of him, the mother of 2 little girls who had asked him the simplest, most life-altering question. His voice finally broke through the silence. "They are mine." Sophie nodded, tears in her eyes. Yes. He had no words left. Everything he thought he knew about his life had just shifted beneath him. 2 little girls, with crooked ponytails and hopeful smiles, had unknowingly rewritten his entire world. The days after Sophie's confession felt heavier than anything Ethan had ever carried. For a man who had built an empire through quick decisions and calculated risks, he found himself paralyzed. He vanished for nearly a week, not because he wanted to abandon them, but because he had to look in the mirror and ask who he really was. Nights in his high-rise apartment became endless. He sat with untouched glasses of scotch, staring at the city lights, but all he could see were the faces of Lily and Grace and the guarded eyes of Sophie. When he finally returned, it was not with polished shoes and confident strides, but with disheveled hair, wrinkled clothes, and red-rimmed eyes. Standing at Sophie's door, he knocked slowly, deliberately. She opened it, surprise flashing across her face before it hardened into quiet disappointment. "You disappeared," she said simply. "I needed time," he admitted, his voice cracking. "Not to run, but to understand, to ask myself what kind of man I want to be. And the answer is this man, the one who should have been here years ago." Before Sophie could reply, Lily's voice called out from the hallway, "Mommy, who is it?" Sophie hesitated, then stepped aside. Ethan knelt, just as the girls barreled toward him. They collided in his arms, their squeals filling the space with warmth he had never known. Tears streaked his face as he whispered, "I am never leaving again, I promise." From that day forward, Ethan's choices were clear. He called his attorney, requesting every legal step necessary. Petitions were filed, paperwork drafted. He was determined to have his name added to their birth certificates, to make official what his heart already knew. At each appointment, whether a DNA test or a school record update, he involved Sophie. Not out of duty, but because she mattered. But change did not come only in signatures. Ethan began weaving himself into the fabric of their daily lives. He picked the girls up from school, clapped at dance recitals, sat through science projects, and made bedtime stories come alive with different voices. For every character, he brought groceries, repaired broken faucets with clumsy determination, and even built a bookcase from scratch for the twins' growing collection of stories. The apartment, though small, began to feel warmer, filled with laughter that had been missing for far too long. Still, Ethan saw the strain. The cramped rooms, the peeling paint, the bunk bed that barely fit two growing girls. One evening, after Sophie tucked the twins into bed, Ethan lingered in the hallway. "This place," he said gently, "it is a home, but it is too small for four." He hesitated before pulling a folded sheet from his coat pocket. A house listing. 3 bedrooms, a backyard, sunlight spilling through a kitchen window. "I bought it last week. It is for all of you, if you will come." Sophie stared at the paper, stunned. "Ethan, that is too much." "No," he replied softly. "Not when it means giving them room to grow. Not when it means giving us a chance to be a family." It took her 3 days to say yes. When they finally moved in, the sun broke through the clouds, as if the world itself was blessing the decision. The girls ran from room to room, claiming corners with laughter that echoed through freshly painted walls. Lily's room had fairy lights strung around a reading nook, while Grace's walls were covered with fresh paper for her art. Sophie walked slowly through the house, touching door frames and counters as though afraid it would all vanish. That night, as they ate pizza on paper plates and Ethan told knock-knock jokes that made Lily snort with laughter, Sophie's heart ached with something unfamiliar, hope. But the deeper change was not in the walls of the new house. It was in Ethan himself. The man who once measured success in profit margins now measured it in bedtime hugs and school projects. He watched Sophie moving through the kitchen, humming softly, her hair falling loose, and realized this was the life he had been missing. One quiet evening, after the girls had gone to bed, Ethan leaned against the counter, watching her wipe the table. His voice broke the silence. "I do not want to just co-parent with you." She looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" "I want more than weekends and shared schedules. I want to wake up beside you. I want to build this life with you, not out of guilt, but because I love you. I fell in love with this family the moment Lily and Grace asked me to be their dad, and I fell in love with you when I saw how fiercely you fight for them every day." Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "Ethan, I want to believe you. But you are a CEO with polished shoes, and I am just a woman who barely made it through nursing school while raising 2 kids. I need to know this is not charity." He stepped closer, taking her hand. "This is not charity. This is me realizing every success I have ever had feels empty without you. You and the girls, you are the life I did not know I was starving for." In that moment, Sophie's defenses cracked. She looked at him, her hand trembling in his, and for the first time, she allowed herself to believe. The girls, never far from mischief, had overheard everything. With childlike determination, they planned a family dinner complete with paper hearts, plastic candles, and 2 signs taped to chairs, "Mommy" and "Marry him." When Sophie walked into the room, she burst into laughter and tears all at once. Ethan joined them, stunned, then turned to Sophie with a seriousness that silenced the room. "It is messy, it is loud, it is imperfect," he said, voice low but steady. "But it is us, and I want it all." Sophie's tears slipped freely now. Her answer was simple, trembling but certain. "Yes, I want that too," the girls squealed, throwing their arms around both of them. For the first time, everything felt whole. Weeks later, at a backyard dinner under paper lanterns, Ethan pulled out a small box wrapped in glitter tape. Inside was a vintage ring, delicate and timeless, once belonging to his grandmother. He slipped it onto Sophie's hand with a promise, not just for her, but for the family they had built together. That night, Lily snapped a picture on his phone. 4 figures under the oak tree, their faces lit by lanterns and love. Later, that picture would hang above their fireplace, beneath a carved wooden sign that read, "Our family." Sometimes, the family you need finds you when you least expect it. And sometimes, second chances build something even stronger than the life you thought you had lost. Life rarely unfolds the way we expect it to. For Ethan Walker, a man who had built his world on logic, profit, and careful strategy, everything changed with one simple question from 2 small voices: "Will you be our daddy?" In that moment, the walls he had spent years constructing began to crumble. What started as an accident, a wrong turn into the chaos of family day, became the doorway to a love he had never known, a belonging he had never dared to imagine. Lily and Grace did not need him to be perfect. They did not need grand gestures, luxury cars, or polished shoes. They only needed presence, a hand to hold, a cheer from the back row, a ride home when snowflakes began to fall. And slowly, Ethan learned that the truest wealth was measured not in numbers, but in laughter, echoing through small rooms, in paper hearts taped to chairs, in bedtime hugs that tightened around his neck as though refusing to let go. For Sophie, love had long meant sacrifice, working late shifts, hiding her exhaustion behind smiles, carrying the weight of both parents on her shoulders. She had shielded her daughters with everything she had, even when it meant carrying secrets too heavy for one heart. Yet when she found the courage to tell the truth, she discovered something even more powerful, that vulnerability could open the door to healing, that forgiveness could transform not just one life, but 4. Together, this family learned that second chances are not about erasing the past. They are about building something stronger because of it. They learned that love is not flawless. It is messy, complicated, and often terrifying. But when chosen every single day, it becomes the most certain foundation their island. Sometimes, family is written in blood. Sometimes, it is written in choice. And sometimes, as in the case of Ethan, Sophie, Lily, and Grace, it is both. A family found not in perfect circumstances, but in imperfect moments that became perfect because they chose to face them together. This story is not just about one man discovering his daughters, or one woman learning to trust again. It is about all of us. It is about the quiet power of showing up, the strength in forgiving, and the beauty of choosing love, even when fear whispers it might be easier to walk away. And as we leave this story behind, may it remind you that the family you dream of might be closer than you think. Waiting in unexpected places, hidden inside ordinary days. All it takes is the courage to say yes to love, to hope, to belonging. If this story touched your heart, imagine what else awaits you. Join us at the Retold Stories, where every tale is a reminder that love, kindness, and second chances can transform lives. Subscribe today, and let us continue sharing stories that heal, inspire, and bring us closer to what truly matters.